Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. On today's podcast, we're going to be looking at the 4 books that I enjoyed in June. The first book on the list is Obama's first book, Dreams of My Father, and this is an adapted version for young readers because it makes it a bit more palatable. And this book is highly recommended when you're thinking about race, and if you're like me, if you're a person of color born in another country to your parents' country of origin, then there's a lot you can resonate with in terms of his journey going back to Kenya, trying to find his roots, trying to find his father's roots and understand himself better, understand his identity, his color, what it means to be half Kenyan, half American. He really unpicks some of the topics around race and being in a country where you're not necessarily accepted. The other main takeaway of this book is that immigrant mentality, which a lot of immigrants had when they emigrated to America, Canada, and the UK and Australia, where they worked hard, they studied hard, they wanted their kids to be highly educated in order to get better jobs and better themselves in life. And again, I can resonate with a lot of that story because although I haven't got anywhere near the heights of Obama, I can appreciate how my parents came to this country, worked really hard, and wanted me to be highly educated and to better myself. That hunger I've found to be ubiquitous within first generation immigrants, within first generation South Asian immigrants. I also learned how when you're trying to better yourself, and in Obama's case, when he was moving on to Harvard to study law, a lot of the people in the communities that he was part of were saying this was inevitable for you, you're leaving the hood. And I can appreciate how when you move on from your circle, your psychological and social safety net, it can sometimes seem to others like you're leaving them behind or that you feel like you're better than them. I'm fortunate to have a lot of the friends that I grew up with and I've known for over 30 years and I feel privileged to still call them friends today. However, I have made lots of acquaintances and friends along the way in all different walks of life, from all different walks of life and in all positions of society. Personally, I find this enriching and I feel very fortunate to know the people I know, partly because of this podcast. The second book I read was Making It by Jay Blades. Again, this month has been mostly focused around culture and awareness, understanding race, understanding how someone of color finds their place in society when they move to a different country or when they are not the dominant race within that society, and when they are the minority group within the country they live in. Jay Blades is an interesting character, having been born and brought up in an area which I worked in, Hackney. The earlier parts of his story made me reminisce, as I know the school he went to, I walked past it on my way to Homerton Hospital, and so it brought back feelings of, and so the beginning of the book was nostalgic in some sense. Jay grew up at a different time, a time where racism was perhaps more rife and more widely accepted, and he had a very troubled youth going into early adulthood. What I learned from this book is regardless of how rough of a start you have, people can change, and his story does fill one with hope. The second thing I learned from this book is that it's never too late. In one part of the story, he's a similar age to what I am, and he's a similar age to the age I am, and he's living in a 1-bedroom council estate, not knowing what he wants to do with his life, working as a labourer. And again, this gave me hope because it made me think, even if you don't have something figured out, you're going into your 40s. Look at Jay Blades. He went into his 40s, had a breakdown, was in the lowest of lows, to a point where he actually lost 3 or 4 days of his life. He was sat in a car park, and when he regained awareness of where he was, he had actually lost days of his life. That's how severe his breakdown was. He came back from that and became a beloved star with an audience of over 12 million a week. The third thing I took away from this book is that if you're passionate about something, if you really love something, you're far more likely to feel fulfilled and to excel at that and to get the right opportunities and really make it, as it were. And so it's really important to do something that you're truly passionate about, not just something that you think will gain you notoriety or money. And that is a beautiful reminder. The third book I really enjoyed this month was Becoming, which was written by none other than Michelle Obama, Obama's wife, Barack Obama's wife. This book is highly acclaimed, over 14 million copies sold, and I can understand why. She is a highly intelligent person with a way of expressing her ideas in a very down-to-earth and relatable way. The first thing I took from this book is you can be incredibly smart, incredibly ambitious, and still be down-to-earth, relatable, and not come across as pompous. The second thing I took from this book was how much of a contributor she was to Barack's presidency. She rallied as much as he did. She was on the road as much as he was. She won the hearts and minds of the US people as much as Barack did. And without her, he would not have been president. It highlights the incredible boon of having a smart, personable, affable person like Michelle in the world, like Michelle Obama by one side. When discussions about women being inferior come up in some small-minded conversations, she's a great example of why truly from her kings are born. The power and benevolence of women is incredible. The third thing I took from this book was I really liked how she was honest. She was honest about how she didn't want him to run for president-elect. She was really honest about how she didn't want him to run for president, how his political career was having a negative impact on their marriage, how she sought marriage counseling, how she would break into rages when he wouldn't fulfill his commitments, and how she struggled to juggle family life, and how she struggled to juggle a career, motherhood, marriage, her health, social commitments, and the whole gamut of commitments that women have on themselves, and the whole gamut of commitments and plates that women have spinning. It's incredible and humbling. It's humbling, incredible, and relatable to hear about her trials and tribulations, to hear about her journey and how they got through it. Those are my 3 book recommendations for this month. As you can tell, I'm reading autobiographies at the moment, and these 3 have left me inspired, motivated, and hopeful. Thanks for listening. Do you recommend any autobiographies that you have read? Please drop a message in the comment box below and I'll be sure to have a read.